Hello everyone. This is in continuation with our last lecture, which was chapter 3. We were discussing about chapter 3, where we discussed about data transmission, types of data transmission, how to transmit the analog data, how to transmit the digital data. So this is the next part of the chapter 3, which is the transmission impairments. Now, what are transmission impairments? We are going to discuss in this part. So, with any communication system, the signal that we receive, it may be different from the signal that is transmitted from the transmitter end. That means what the sender has sent, receiver may receive something different because of various transmission impairments. So, for analog signal, what can be the transmission impairment? The degradation of the signal quality, the change in the shape of the signal, that can be the transmission impairment for an analog signal. For the digital signal, bit errors may be introduced. Bit errors means digital 0 may be changed to 1 or 1 may be changed to 0. So these are the types of transmission impairments which may be introduced to the analog or the digital signal. Now in this section we are going to check what are the various types of transmission impairments and how do they affect the information carrying capacity of a communication link. These transmission impairments, they definitely affect the capacity of the link between the devices. So most significant transmission impairments are: first one is the attenuation and attenuation distortion, second one is the delay distortion, and third one is the noise. Now we are going to discuss all these three transmission impairments in detail. Alright, so moving ahead. So first of all we are going to discuss about the attenuation. So continuing with the attenuation. What is attenuation? Now the strength of a signal, it falls off. That means it vanishes or it diminishes with the distance over any transmission medium. So the strength of the signal loses its energy when it travels a certain distance in any transmission medium. Doesn't matter the signal is being transmitted using a wire or a wireless medium. The strength of the signal or the energy of the signal always falls after traveling certain distance. So this is called as attenuation. So this is called as attenuation. Now if we are using a wired media, for example in your homes you may be using the fiber optic cables, the loss in the strength or the attenuation is normally exponential. So it is expressed as a constant of number of decibels per unit distance. But for the unguided media like the wireless transmission, for example the Wi-Fi routers at your home, attenuation is a more complex function of a distance and the makeup of the atmosphere, because in the wireless transmission the atmosphere also plays an important role. Now attenuation introduces three considerations for the transmission engineer. These are the three considerations that must be considered by the transmission engineer while designing any transmission link. First consideration is received signal should have sufficient strength, so that should have sufficient strength. It should be strong enough to be detected and it should be higher than the noise to be received without error. So the strength of the signal should be strong enough so that the transmission the device can detect the signal, and the strength of the signal should be higher than the noise, because there are crosstalk noise, other thermal noise also which are present in the wire. Second thing is strength can be increased by using the amplifiers or repeaters. Now because the signal after traveling to a certain distance, they lose their energy, they lose their strength, so many times repeaters or the amplifiers have to be used. Repeaters are nothing but they are the devices which increase the strength of the signal. So for example, let me just give you, for example, if I have transmitted a data, this is the point of the sender. At this point the strength of the signal is this. Now after going through certain distance, the strength of the signal decreases something like this. So at this point somewhere here the network engineer or the transmission engineer has to use a device called as repeater. Now what this repeater will do, when the signal passes through this or comes to this device, repeater increases the strength of the signal. So when the signal enters this device, the energy of the signal will be increased many folds. So same thing, at many points repeaters will be used. So the repeaters, they increase the strength of the signal. Third point is equalize attenuation across the band of frequencies used by using a loading coils or amplifiers. So because attenuation is greater at higher frequencies, that's why attenuation has to be equalized across the band of frequencies which are used by using the loading coils or the amplifiers. So when attenuation is greater at higher frequencies, and this causes the distortion. Alright, now for a point-to-point link, if the devices are linked point-to-point, the signal strength of the transmitter should also be strong enough to be received intelligibly, but it should not be so strong to overload the circuit of the transmitter. Also, after a certain distance, attenuation, it becomes so high that repeaters or amplifiers, they have to be installed at the regular intervals so that the energy of the signal has to be regained. So after traveling certain distance, the signal loses its strength. So these repeaters have to be installed after 1 kilometer or half kilometer or something like this, so that the signal can gain its energy. So these problems are more complex for multi-point lines where the distance from the transmitter and the receiver is variable. Now the third point, equalizing the attenuation. This is called as the attenuation distortion, and this is particularly noticeable for the analog signals because attenuation is different for the different frequencies. Different frequencies, when the signal is traveling at different frequencies will experience different type of attenuation. And the signal, as we have learned in the previous lecture, that the signal is made up of number of signals having different frequencies. So the received signal is not only reduced in strength but also distorted. That means it will not only lose its strength but also distorted means it may change the shape. So for example, if originally the shape of the signal is like this, after reaching to a certain point, for example, it may have a shape something like this. So this is called as distortion. So the received signal will not only lose its strength, but it will also become distorted. So to overcome this problem, the solution to this problem is the techniques are available for equalizing the attenuation. That means attenuation should be equally distributed across the band of frequencies, and this type of technique is commonly done for the voice grade telephone lines, the normal telephones which we have it in our homes, by using a loading coils. Loading coils is a technique that change the electrical properties of the line, and hence we do not experience the attenuation effects. Another approach can be using the amplifiers to amplify high frequencies more than the lower frequencies. So we can use either the loading coils or the amplifiers. Amplifiers are also the devices they amplify the higher frequencies. Amplify means giving strength or giving more energy to the signals of the higher frequencies than to the signals of the lower frequencies. Alright, continuing. So here is an example of the attenuation distortion. So here in the figure, what it shows. Now in this figure, it shows the attenuation without equalization, that the attenuation has not been equalized. Now if you see over here, the signals that are being transmitted belong to various frequencies. For example, 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500 and so on. So frequency components at the upper end of the voice band are attenuated. So if you see At the upper end, these are attenuated. These are attenuated more over here. So the solid line shows that it is without equalization. This solid line, this shows it is without equalization. Frequencies attenuation is not equalized. So if you see over here, attenuation is more towards the high frequency bands. Now when signals are equalized, if you see over here the dotted line, it shows when equalization is applied, so the attenuation is distributed over all the frequency bands. So same thing is shown over here in the figure below. Now let's talk about delay distortion. Now what is delay distortion? Delay distortion, it occurs because propagation velocity of a signal through a guided medium varies with the frequency. Now first of all, let's talk about what is delay distortion. Delay distortion is a phenomena, or it's a technique that occurs in the transmission cable. So it's more related to the wired medium rather than the wireless medium. It does not occur when the signals are transmitted through the air by means of antennas. That means delay distortion does not occur when we are using the wireless media. So this technique is problem. I will not say technique, this problem is more related to the signals when we are transmitting the signals through the wired media. For example, when we are using the twisted pair cables, coaxial cables, or the fiber optic cables. But delay distortion is not experienced when the signals are transmitted through the wireless medium like your Wi-Fi routers or with the means of antennas. So delay distortion is caused by the fact that velocity propagation of a signal through the cable is different for different frequencies, because different signals of different frequency, they travel at a distant speed, which causes the delay distortion. So for example, signals of higher frequency may travel faster, signals with low frequency may travel slower. So this causes the delay distortion. So it is by the fact that velocity of propagation, speed of traveling of a signal through a cable is different for different frequencies. So for a signal with a given bandwidth, the speed or the velocity will be higher near the central frequency of the signal, and it will fall off toward the two edges. So various components of the signal will arrive at the receiver at different times. So when different components or the different the frequency signals arrive at the receiver end at different time, this causes the delay in the signals and hence delay in receiving of the packets. So this effect is referred to as the delay distortion, because the signal that is received by the receiver is distorted. Distorted means it is changed due to varying delays experienced by the different frequency signals. So delay distortion is very much a matter of concern for the digital data, because consider an example of I am sending a data and it consists of certain bits, for example sequence of bits 1 0 1 1 1 0 0 something like this, and it is transmitted using either analog or the digital signals. So because of delay distortion, some of the signal components of one position will spill over onto other bit position, which will cause the inter-symbol interference. That means they will overlap with each other. This one and this one will overlap with each other. So this will cause the inter-symbol interference, and which is a major limitation to maximum bit rate. Equalizing techniques can be used for the delay distortion also. So using a leased telephone line is an example. So again, equalizing techniques can be used for the delay distortion. The third transmission impairment is the noise. Unwanted noise signals, they can be inserted between the transmitter and the receiver. So when a signal is traveling inside a wire, what happens is there is a lot of noise introduced, because in a wire, when electrical energy is supplied, electrons are moving to each other. So when electrons are moving to each other, certain kinds of noise may be introduced. For example, it can be a thermal noise, it can be a crosstalk noise. So these unwanted signals or the unwanted noise, they are inserted between the transmitter and the receiver. So this is a major limiting factor in the communication system. So for any data transmission, the received signal will consist of transmitted signal, plus it will consist of various distortion imposed by the transmission system, and plus unwanted signal. So the undesired signals that are inserted between our transmitted signal, that is called as the noise. All right, going ahead. Noise. There are different categories of the noise. Now, noise may be divided into 4 categories. We have 4 different kinds of noise: thermal noise, intermodulation noise, crosstalk, and impulse noise. So these are the 4 kinds of noise which are introduced when a signal is traveling through the wire. So let's talk about first of all thermal noise. Thermal noise is introduced because of agitation or the movement of electrons. As you know, when we supply electricity, there are many smaller atom particles like electrons, protons and neutrons which are moving inside the wire. So thermal noise is caused by the thermal agitation, heating up of the electrons. It is present in all electronic devices. So thermal noise is present in all electronic devices, and it is also present in all transmission media, and it is directly proportional to the temperature. Thermal noise is uniformly distributed across the bandwidth. So the most important point over here is it is uniformly distributed across the bandwidths. And sometimes it is also called as the white noise. Thermal noise is also called as the white noise. Thermal noise cannot be eliminated. That means we cannot avoid the thermal noise. So we have to place an upper bound on communication system performance. So this is one of the category of the noise which is introduced in the wires. Next we talk about intermodulation noise. Now intermodulation noise, we know that we transmit the signal of different frequencies through the same wire. So when signals of different frequencies, they are transmitted through the same transmission medium, same wire, they may cause intermodulation noise. So the effect of intermodulation noise is that it will produce signals at a frequency that is sum or difference of the 2 original frequencies or the multiples of 2 frequencies. So what do I mean by that? For example, if we are transmitting 2 signals, for example signal 1 and signal 2, one of them we are transmitting the signal at the 4000 Hertz, right? We are transmitting, the frequency of the signal is 4000 Hertz and the frequency of the second signal is 8000 Hertz. Now both these signals, they are transmitted through the same wire. These 2 signals are transmitted through the same wire. So when they are transmitted through the same wire, they may produce an energy which will be equivalent to 12,000 Hertz. That means sum 8 plus 4 is 12. Or they may produce a signal which is equivalent to 32,000 Hertz, which is the multiplication 8 multiplied by 8000 multiplied by 4000, 32,000 Hertz. So this noise could interfere with an intended signal at the 12,000 Hertz. What do I mean by this? So when these 2 signals, they are traveling in the same wire, they may produce an energy of, or they may produce an energy of 12,000 Hertz. Now there may be a signal which is transmitted through the same wire at the 12,000 Hertz. So this energy will interfere with the signal which is being transmitted at 12,000 Hertz. This is called as intermodulation noise. So intermodulation noise is produced by non-linearities in the transmitter, because there may be non-linearities in the components of the transmitter or the receiver, or even in the transmission medium. So these components actually they behave as the linear system. That means linear system is the one when output is equal to the input times a constant. But in any real system the output is more complex. So that's why the intermodulation noise occurs, because when the different frequency signals they are transmitting through the same wire, they heat up or they interfere with each other to produce energy of a higher frequencies, which may interfere with the higher frequency signal. Alright, moving ahead, next we are going to talk about the crosstalk. Okay, so now let's talk about the crosstalk. Regarding the crosstalk, I can give you an example. Sometimes you might have experienced, for example, you dial your friend's number, but your line gets connected to someone else's phone. That is called as the crosstalk. So a signal from your line is picked by some another line, that is called as the crosstalk, and it's very common. I'm sure that every one of you might have experienced it at some point. So crosstalk has been experienced by anyone who is using a telephone and has been able to hear someone else's conversation. So actually it is an unwanted bonding between the signal paths. So it is an unwanted joining between the signal paths. It actually occurs by electrical coupling, electrical joining between the nearby twisted pairs or the coaxial line cable. So it occurs when the nearby lines they join with each other. So it happens like you are dialing your friend's number, but it gets someone else or someone other phone number, someone else picks up the phone. So this is called as some other antenna picks up the signal or some another line picks up the signal. So crosstalk can also occur when microwave antennas pick up unwanted signals. Although microwave antennas they are very highly directional antennas, but still unwanted signals can be picked up by the microwave antennas. So crosstalk is of the same order of magnitude or less than the thermal noise. Next is impulse noise, which is the last category of the types of the noise. All of the types of noise which we have discussed up to now, reasonably, predictably and relatively constant, they have a reasonably constant magnitude. So it is possible for a transmission for an engineer a transmission system to cope them with them. Whereas impulse noise, now impulse noise is non-continuous. It is consisting of irregular pulses or the noise spikes, and it is caused by external electromagnetic disturbances, such as there may be a lightning, there may be a fault, there may be a flaw in the communication system. So it is caused by the external disturbances. Impulse noise is only a minor annoyance for the analog data. So for example, you might have experienced during when there is a sandstorm and you are talking using a WhatsApp or even on your phone also, sometimes you may feel that the voice is cracking or you are missing the voice. So that is called as an impulse noise. So because of the external things, the voice, the signals are lagged or the signals are not received. So this is called as the impulse noise. So impulse noise can be a minor annoyance for the analog data. For the analog data, impulse noise, you will not feel the impulse noise, but for digital data, it can cause the blunders. In an analog data, for example, you are talking to your friend on a phone and sometime your voice lags or sometime some of the voice transmission is corrupted at short clicks. That means some of the words they are not transmitted, but still you can predict the words or you can hear them intelligibly. But impulse noise is a primary source of primary source of error in the digital communication. So for example, a very small spike in energy will not destroy the voice data, but it can wash out many bits per second, many bits of digital data. So many bits of digital data. So digital data it can cause like blunders for the digital data. For the digital data, it can be of the minor annoyance for the analog data, but source of a blunders of errors for the digital data. So these are the 4 types of noise that can be introduced while we are transmitting our data. Now the next topic that we are going to talk about is the channel capacity. So what is channel capacity? Channel capacity is how much data your channel is capable of transmitting. Channel means your transmission medium. For example, your wire or your wireless medium. So how much data your medium can transfer at a particular time is called as the channel capacity. For example, when you go to buy the internet plans or the data plans or something like this, you are always concerned about what is the capacity, what is the speed, and the provider says it's 1 Gbps or 1 kbps or 1 mbps. That means 1 Gbps means your channel can transmit 1 gigabits per second of data through the channel that you are using. 1 Mbps means your channel is capable of transmitting 1 megabits of data per second, right? So this is called as the channel capacity. Channel capacity is the maximum rate at which data can be transmitted over the given communication channel and under the given condition. So the maximum rate at which data can be transmitted through the channel or through the transmission link. So the 4 concepts related to the channel capacity are: first is the data rate, second is the bandwidth, third is the noise, and fourth is the error rate. So what is data rate? Data rate is in bits per second at which data can be communicated. So data rate, the rate at which data can be communicated. How many bits per second it can transmit? It is always measured in bits per second. The higher units are kbps, which is called as kilobits per second, mbps, which is called as megabits per second, gbps, which is called as gigabits per second. Next is the bandwidth. The bandwidth of the transmitted signal as constrained by the transmitter and the nature of the transmission medium, and it is expressed in per second or it is expressed in hertz. So bandwidth is how much space or you can say. So bandwidth actually depends upon the transmitter and the transmission medium, and the unit to express its hertz. The higher units are kilohertz, megahertz, and gigahertz. Noise, the average level of noise over the communication path. How much average level of noise over the communication path can be introduced on the channel. Last one is the error rate, which is very important. The rate at which an error can occur while the data is being transmitted. Where an error is the, what is an error? Error is the change of data. For example, in the digital data, you have sent a 0, but instead of sending a 0, send a 1, but instead of receiving 1, 0 is received. So 1 gets changed to 0 or 0 gets changed to 1. Reception of a 1 when a 0 is transmitted, or the reception of a 0 when 1 is transmitted, that is called as the error rate. So why we are addressing these problems? The problems that we are addressing is this because the communication facilities, even the links or whatever the devices for the communication that we are using, they are expensive, and the greater the bandwidth of the facility, the greater is the cost. So that's why we are interested in knowing all these things. Alright, so moving ahead. So Why we are addressing the problem? Because communication facilities are expensive, and greater the bandwidth of a facility, greater is the cost. Also, all the transmission channels of any practical interest, they have a limited capacity or they have a limited bandwidth. Also, the limitations arise from because making the efficient use of the bandwidth. We must make efficient use as possible of a given bandwidth, and the main constraint on achieving this efficiency is the introduction of the various kinds of noise while the data is being transmitted. Alright, now we come to two important theorems. One is the Nyquist bandwidth, and another one is the Shannon's theorem. So these are the two theorems that we are going to discuss now. These are the two theorems which are used for measuring the channel's bandwidth. Alright, now Nyquist bandwidth theorem. Now Nyquist bandwidth theorem. What is the Nyquist bandwidth theorem? This theorem is used for measuring the capacity of the channel, or capacity of the channel is also called as the data rate of the channel. Alright, so what are the assumptions? First of all, we will talk about that Nyquist theorem means, and then we are going to talk about the formula, and then we will solve one or two examples. Alright, okay, so if data rate of a signal transmission is 2b, what is b? b is the bandwidth of the signal, is 2 times the bandwidth, then it can carry a signal with the frequency not greater than the bandwidth. So given a bandwidth b, the highest signal rate can be 2 times the bandwidth. So for example, if you have a signal with some bandwidth, then the highest signal rate cannot exceed 2 times the bandwidth. For example, for the binary signals, 2 times the bandwidth bits per second needs the bandwidth of b hertz. So we need the requirement of the b hertz bandwidth. It can increase the rate by using the m times signal levels. So there can be number of signal levels, and the signal rate can be increased by increasing the number of signal levels. So Nyquist formula is given by C is equals to 2b log base 2 of m. Now what is C? C is channel capacity or data rate. What is B? B is the bandwidth. Now what is M? M is the signal levels. So by using this formula, we can measure the capacity of a channel, or we can measure the capacity of a signal. Now data rate, now according to the Nyquist theorem, data rate can be increased by increasing the signals. However, this can increase the burden on the receiver, and it can increase the noise and other impairments which can limit the value of the signal level. So moving ahead. Alright, now let's solve an example using the Nyquist bandwidth. So consider a voice channel being used via modem to transmit the digital signal. Assume a bandwidth of 3100 Hz and the signal level is 8. So going back, the formula is C is equals to 2b log base 2 of m, where b is bandwidth and m is number of signal levels. So let's read it. Bandwidth b is given and number of signal levels are given. So we have the formula C is equals to 2b log 2 of m. Now we are going to use the formula. In place of b, we are going to use 3100, and in case of m, we are going to use 8. Now how to solve these log questions? So see over here, we are going to use this formula C is equals to 2b log base 2 of m. So what I will get, b is 3100 Hz, 2 into 3100 log base 2 of 8. Now how to calculate log base 2 of 8? You can use the calculators. Log base 2 of 8 is calculated as log base 10 of 8 divided by log base 10 of 2. So what you will get, log base 2 of 8 is 3. 3100 into 2 is 6200, log base 2 of 8 is 3, and this is the way how you can calculate the log. Always log base 2 can be calculated as converting it into log base of 10. So it is 3. 6200 multiplied by 3 is 18,600 bits per second, or I can write it as 18.6 kilobits per second. 18.6 kilobits per second. Now, for changing it to the higher units, what you have to do? You have to, for changing now kilobits per second, for changing it into kilobits per second, you have to multiply it by 10 to the power minus 3 for kilobits. For megabits, you have to multiply the bits per second by 10 to the power minus 6. If I want to convert it into gigabits per second, I need to multiply it by 10 to the power 9. So in case of megabits per second, it will be 0.018600 megabits per second, and in case of kilobits per second, it will be 18.6 kilobits per second. So for kilo, you can always multiply it with 10 to the power minus 3, for mega 10 to the power minus 6, and for giga 10 to the power minus 9. This way you can convert it. Now coming to the another formula, which is the Shannon capacity formula. Now considering the relation of data rate, noise and error rate. Faster the data rate, it will shorten each bit, so the noise will, burst of noise will corrupt more bits. So given a noise level, higher rate means higher errors. So Shannon developed a formula relating these signal to noise ratio. He called it as signal to noise ratio rather than calling it as levels. So signal to noise ratio, how signal to noise ratio is calculated? Signal power divided by noise power. It does not have any unit. Now SNR, we call it as SNR dB. We have to calculate SNR dB for calculating the SNR, or SNR dB we have to calculate. It is calculated as 10 log base 10 of signal to noise ratio SNR. According to the Shannon capacity formula, the capacity of the channel, the formula is B log base 2. In the bracket we have 1 plus SNR. What is SNR? SNR is signal to noise ratio. Now sometimes it happens that signal to noise ratio is given to you in this form, signal to noise ratio in decibels. Then in that case you have to calculate the SNR by using this formula, because here if you see in the formula we are using SNR and not SNR dB. So that's why this formula is here. Now it calculates the theoretical maximum capacity and it gets much lower rates in practice. Alright, now let's just check it out. Let's calculate one question. Alright, so let's just look into this question given by the Shannon for the Shannon capacity. Let's consider an example that relates the Nyquist and Shannon formulation. Now this will give us a relation also between the Nyquist and the Shannon formula. Suppose we have a spectrum of a channel between 3 MHz and 4 MHz. If you see over here, the bandwidth is not given, but the spectrum is given. So we need to calculate the bandwidth first. If you have listened to my previous lecture, I have explained how to calculate the bandwidth. Bandwidth is calculated as highest frequency minus lowest frequency, and SNR dB is given over here. So we have to calculate the channel capacity according to the Nyquist theorem and according to the Shannon's theorem also. Going back, if you see in the example, we are given the SNR dB. So signal to noise ratio is given in the form of decibels dB. So we have to calculate SNR by using this formula first. That's why we have this formula. Alright, so first of all we need to calculate the bandwidth. Bandwidth is calculated as 4 highest frequency minus the lowest frequency. So 4 megahertz minus 3 megahertz will give you the 1 megahertz. Now since this is in megahertz, we need to convert it into hertz. In the previous slide I just told you, if you want to convert bits per second to kilobits per second, you have to multiply it by 10 to the power minus 3. From BPS to megabits per second, 10 to the power minus 6. Gigabits per second, 10 to the power minus 9. Now vice versa. For example, if you want, same thing goes for hertz, megahertz, kilohertz and gigahertz. So if you are given something in megahertz, you need to convert it in hertz. Just multiply it by 10 to the power 6. If you are given something in kilohertz, you want to convert it into hertz, multiply it by 10 to the power 3. You are given something in gigahertz, you want to convert it into hertz, multiply it by 10 to the power 9. Same thing is applicable to the bits per second also. You are given something in gigabits per second, you want to convert it into bits per second, you want to multiply it, you will multiply it by 10 to the power 9. So always remember, kilo is 10 to the power 3, mega is 10 to the power 6 and giga is 10 to the power 9. So 1 megahertz means 10 to the power 6 hertz. Now signal to noise ratio in decibels we are given as 24 dB. So we have to calculate SNR. How to calculate the SNR? We have the formula SNR dB is equals to 10 log base of 10 SNR. Alright, now I will put over here 24, 10 log base of 10 SNR. So what I get? Now here what is done over here? 10 is brought over here below 24. So 24 divided by 10 will make it as 2.4. That's why I have 2.4 over here, log base of 10 SNR. So SNR is 251. How it is 251? So how it is 251? Now it is 2.4 log base 10 of SNR. To calculate SNR, I will take the log to the other side. Log to the other side. So it will become 10 to the power 2.4. So it will become 10 to the power 2.4 is equals to SNR. So 10 to the power 2.4 is 251 point something. So because points are negligible, that's why we take it as the 251. So SNR comes 251. Now we will calculate the channel capacity using the Shannon's theorem. So Shannon formula is C is equals to B log base to 1 plus SNR. So B is already given, we have calculated 10 to the power 6 and SNR we have calculated as 251. So 10 to the power 6 into log base of 2, 1 plus 251, which makes it 252. So when you calculate log base 2 of 252, same way you will calculate log base 10 of 252 divided by log base 10 of 2. You will get 7 point something, 7.8 or 7 something like that. So that can be equated to 8. So 8 into 10 to the power 6. You can write it as 8 into 10 to the power 6 bits per second, because 10 to the power 6 is mega. So you can write it 8 megabits per second. So this is according to the Shannon capacity formula. Now we have the only difference between Shannon capacity and the Nyquist is Nyquist theorem calculates the data rate and takes into account the number of signal levels. Rest all is the same. If you can recall, Nyquist theorem, the formula is C is equals to 2B into log base 2 of M. So if I want to calculate now the number of levels that should be used for transmitting the signal, I can calculate because I already have the channel capacity. This is C. I can put C over here. I already have the bandwidth. I can calculate M. So this is the relation between the Nyquist and the Shannon formula. So this is a theoretical limit and is unlikely to be reached because of the noise and the errors. The one that we calculated in the previous slide, That is the theoretical limit which has been calculated, but Shannon capacity, it does not take into account the noise and the errors, but assume we can achieve the limit based on the Nyquist formula. So how many signal levels are required? So we can use the same. In the previous slide, we calculated the channel capacity as 8 megabits per second. So 8 into 10 to the power 6. While we are calculating, always convert it into the lower units. Bandwidth also we have calculated in the previous slide. We know 10 to the power 6 hertz, right? So 2 into 10 to the power 6 and log base 2 of m, that means number of signal levels we need to convert. So 10 to the power 6 can cancel. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 4 log base 2 of m. So it will be 2 to the m will be 2 to the power 4. So m is calculated as 2 to the power 4. 2 to the power is 4 is 16. So number of signal levels that are required are 16. So 16 signal levels are required. So that is all about the Shannon capacity and the Nyquist theorem. So let me just sum up what I have done in the what we have done in the chapter. We have talked about transmission concepts and the terminology. We have talked about the characteristics of the signals like frequency, spectrum, bandwidth, wavelength, peak amplitude, and the phase, and all these things. Then we have talked about analog signals and digital signals, their characteristics, what are analog signals, what are digital signals. Then we discussed about data rate and the bandwidth relationship, and then at the end we talked about transmission impairments, types of noise, and at the end it was channel capacity using the Nyquist theorem and the Shannon's theorem. So here we complete the chapter number 3. So thank you so much.